The sacrifice of Robotnik, the true hero in Sonic 3. Robotnik is one of the most intelligent and cruel characters in the Sonic universe, a character who has tried to conquer the world and experiment with the energy of our favorite blue hedgehog. However, in Sonic 3, this character went from being the villain of the story to become the least expected hero. What happens when you are rejected all your life? You become a villain, but you are the last one who can save the world. What happens if you must save and not conquer? This is the story of one of the most complicated and intelligent villains. Today we'll be talking about Robotnik and how he might return in Sonic 4, as perhaps he was able to escape his end. And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Welcome to the Oasis Geek. The Sonic trilogy has become one of the most celebrated movies by fans, as they managed to capture the essence of the characters, but also managed to surprise us with elements never seen before in the Sonic universe. Such is the case of the reason that brings us to this day. But to understand why Robotnik decided to become the hero of the movie, and how he could have survived the end, we must start at the beginning. And I am not referring to the birth of this villain, but to that of his grandfather. When the government approached Grandpa Robotnik, he was one of the world's most beloved scientists. Unlike his grandson, his discoveries were focused on improving the quality of people's lives. However, the professor's granddaughter was ill, and the government took advantage of this situation. They told her about the energies of the Chaos Emeralds and created a project to seek immortality. Also, the government had found the remains of a meteorite where Shadow came from, and this would be studied by the government. The grandfather of the doctor who confronted Sonic spent decades trying to find immortality, seeking to replicate the secret of the Chaos Emeralds. The result was the creation of multiple creatures that would later serve to take revenge on the government for what would happen next. In the movie, we could see how the government at one point betrayed the professor and in turn caused Maria's death. This severely affected the mind of the professor, who dedicated his last days to planning revenge against the government and wished to destroy the Earth. For the professor, the only important person was Maria, and if they had taken her away from him, they must pay. After this, time passes, and Gerald Robotnik is believed to be dead, and his grandson begins to gain worldwide notoriety. However, there is a theory that proposes the grandson is actually a clone of Gerald, something we will talk about specifically in his own video. From an early age, he showed extraordinary abilities, but like many geniuses, his brilliant mind led him to be misunderstood. He grew up in a place where his ideas were too advanced for others, which led him to feel isolated and unappreciated. In the Sonic 3 movie, Evo mentions that he grew up without parents or family, and that the people around him were too dumb. He never fit into the world and felt so much rejection that he eventually became a villain. In the first instance, Eggman had come to the conclusion that if the world is not what he wanted, then he must conquer it. Eggman's quest for power is an attempt by Eggman to fit into the world and find his purpose. He created his own army and a plan to take over the world. But he didn't take into account that a blue hedgehog would arrive and thwart his plans several times. He and his loyal assistant, Agent Stone, are sent to investigate a power outage in Green Hills, Montana. There, they encounter something unexpected. An alien hedgehog named Sonic with incredible powers. Fascinated and obsessed, Robotnik tries to capture him to analyze his power. But with the help of Tom Wachowski, Sonic escapes. Months later, he manages to ally with Knuckles the Echidna, promising him revenge against Sonic. However, his intentions change when he discovers the Master Emerald, an artifact with infinite power. He manipulates Knuckles to obtain it, but when he finally gets it and sets his plans of conquest in motion, Sonic, transformed into Super Sonic, stops him once again. This time, Robotnik survives and hides, faithfully cared for by Stone, although many believed that he had lost his life. It is at this point that his grandfather begins to use Evo's technology to lure him to his secret location, and use his grandson's intellect to help him take revenge. The two Eggmans team up with Shadow to destroy the world. For fans of the Sonic universe, the ending of Sonic 3 was an obvious one. Shadow would remember Maria's words and prevent the destruction of the world. But the surprise was great when the savior was actually the person with whom they had fought so hard, and who had received so much scorn in the world. The story of Sonic 3 is really about how the conditions of life does not justify revenge, or how what happens to you doesn't justify you becoming a villain. This is something Shadow understood, but is best explained by Professor Ivo Robotnik. Although the movie showed us how this character was quite happy to have a grandfather, and how he eventually achieved his goal of defeating Sonic and gaining power, in the end, Ivo had no desire to destroy the planet. He sacrificed himself to save his only friend, Agent Stone, and thus prevent the destruction of planet Earth. Eggman became the most important and emotional character in this universe. However, this may not be the end for him, as there are at least 3 ways he could return. The first way is that he is a clone of Professor Gerald Robotnik. In one of the scenes of Sonic 3, we could hear Agent Stone mention that he did not want to lose the professor again. A rather strange statement, as he knew the professor was alive, and we also heard Eggman mention that he wished to clone Agent Stone. This leads us to believe that cloning is a thing in this universe, and just like Sonic, he may be an experiment or a clone of Shadow. Eggman could be a clone of his grandfather, and we could see him in the future. Another option is that before the destruction of the space station, Shadow possibly rescued Eggman. Being that he was sacrificing himself, possibly Shadow empathizes with him and decides to rescue him. But perhaps the most epic way he could have been saved was by becoming Super Eggman. Super Eggman is the most powerful version of Robotnik, in which he manages to replicate the power of Super Sonic through technology and manipulation of the Phantom Ruby, an artifact capable of altering reality. In this form, Eggman not only obtains extraordinary physical strength and speed, but can also use abilities similar to those of the Chaos Emeralds, such as generating energy explosions and manipulating the space around him. This concept was introduced in 2023 in an official Sega comic book, where it is revealed that Eggman, after years of studying the Chaos Emeralds and experimenting with the Phantom Ruby, manages to create the Phantom Ruby prototype. This artifact allows him to channel his energy directly into his own body, transforming him into a human version capable of rivaling Super Sonic and Super Shadow. In the movie, we saw Shadow use the emeralds to become Super Shadow and also Sonic, but we didn't see Eggman make use of those powers, at least not on screen. However, there is a possibility that if Shadow went in to save Eggman, perhaps he came into contact with this power, and Eggman could have momentarily transformed and escaped that explosion. Eggman being the main character in these movies, I don't think this is the last time we'll see him. I think it's more than certain that his story will continue. Maybe in the next movie we will see a Super Eggman or be shown how Shadow saved the Professor. Perhaps the next movie could unite Eggman with Team Sonic to take on a much more powerful foe. Eggman's intellect is very useful, although of course, many would think he remains a villain because he destroyed half the moon. Eggman's story is one of overcoming and deciding to be different, of not following the dark paths of one's own family and deciding to be the change. Eggman became the least expected hero of this universe and the protagonist of this trilogy. We hope to see him again in the future. But tell me, what do you think about all this? Did the Professor really survive, or do you think this was the last time we saw Eggman? What do you think will happen in Sonic 4? And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You are on The Oasis Geek.